Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Welcome to the new participants that joined us today. Welcome also to the online participants. Yesterday, you were almost 200 that followed us the whole day, so thank you very much. About the web streaming, just a word to tell you that the replay from yesterday is already available on our website and YouTube channel, so you can share it. And today's conference is also web streamed, and the replay will also be available as of this afternoon. So a few things I would, first, a question. How was your evening in Valenciennes? Most important question of the day. You saw, huh? I told you. Please spread the word. Okay, first thing, we found a wallet in the reception desk. Maybe a serious question. So please check if you have your wallet with you. If not, we found one. So then I haven't opened it at all. So yeah, please, if you're looking for your wallet, please come and see either me or one of the ERA staff or Dorothea at the reception desk. Another thing, have you all signed the attendance list that is at the reception desk at the entrance? If not, please, during the coffee break or when you leave, just please sign it so we can know exactly how much you were. Another thing, when you leave, unfortunately, later on, please leave your lanyard left at the entrance desk. We know you want a souvenir from ERA, but please leave the lanyards so we can reuse them for other conferences. It's good for the planet and for our budget. So today's program is quite busy. We have a coffee break at 11 and the lunch planned at 1:15. I think that's it for me. We can now launch the fourth session of the conference titled Organizational Learning. To begin with, I would like to invite Ellen Thompson, I saw you here, and Bjorn Fies, both from Eurostars, right? To the stage, please, a round of applause for them. So, Elaine, you're an investigation and HOF specialist at Eurostar. And Bjorn, you're a safety systems director, also working at Eurostar.
Correct.
Please, floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Always difficult being first up. I hope you had a good night and we have another great day ahead. So today we're just going to tell you about our proactive approach to risk management and investigations and how we're trying to sort of get learning through our organisation and look at how we can understand our risks more effectively. So first of all, a little bit about Eurostar. Oh, sorry.
Speak closer. Yeah.
Sorry. First, a little bit about Eurostar. So we are an international high-speed railway undertaking. We operate across the UK or from the UK into 4 other European countries, across France, Belgium, Netherlands and Germany. We're also an entity in charge of maintenance. We own our trains and we maintain our trains. At Eurostar, we're constantly trying to improve the way that we manage risk and our safety performance as we move forward. So we've had quite a period of change over the last few years. We've grown and we've had a merger as bringing 2 companies together from Eurostar and Thales into one Eurostar group. And because of that, it creates the need to align our processes, to bring our companies together, and to bring our safety management systems together. So because of that, we've taken an approach to really understand the different approaches and our barriers and controls for risk. And we've done this in 2 ways. So firstly, by taking the approach to systematically map our risks and carry out our bow tie analyses to really understand where our risks are and how our controls that we have in place. But secondly, to adopt a proactive incident analysis approach to really look at the effectiveness of those barriers and controls and how they're manifesting themselves into the sort of low-level events and incidents that we might have. And by taking this approach, we're really taking a sort of two angles. So we're firstly looking at trying to understand where those controls are from a sort of a design engineering side, but also to look at, you know, where there are weaknesses and where we can improve. So really trying to bridge that gap between work as imagined and work as done. So I'm just going to hand over to Bjorn to tell you about the analysis.
It seems, yeah, okay. So just to talk about the risk mapping and the bow tie analysis part of our presentation. So on the objectives of our project, first one was to map our major risks and to create to basically move from a more reactive, rule-based safety to a more proactive, risk-based safety. And that's a long-term objective. Huh? That's something is not, this is an organization growing towards this, but this tool is meant to help us to achieve that. Obviously also to construct a hazard register to be compliant. That was one of the objectives of that project. But also to construct safety indicators to support safety performance and to monitor that safety performance. And you are looking for leading indicators, and that's a good source to find them. On the other hand, what we also wanted to do with this tool is that when you talk about incidents, when you do training, when you are communicating about safety, is to have that common understanding of your major risks. And that's not an easy thing to have. If you don't have a common model, you will very soon use, we talked yesterday about different cultures, different languages. Well, things about acronyms and way acronyms can be understood. That's a way not to have the same understanding of your risk model. So you have to work on that as well. And also the subject of today is the importance of HOF in your barriers. I mean, we call it HOF barriers, but really it's the contribution of human and organizational factors in the effectiveness of your safety barriers. And the bow tie model helps you to have that conversation about, hey, what is that contribution? When you talk about active barriers, you're really in that conversation. So increasing, obviously also like Elaine said, we are in a change mode, merging two companies. So being more efficient about your changes, understanding what you're changing is also one of the benefits, we believe, for that approach. So how did we go about it? We identified major events, and the top events, the ones where you lose control, and that's the heart of your bow tie. We used the draft of the common safety method on performance to identify specifically the category B events in the appendix, to identify what are our top events we need to manage, what is the consensus are our major events, both on maintenance and operations. And in a bow tie, you put then those events in a context, a danger context, and you start identifying where are our major risks. That's how we identified which bow ties we wanted to develop. So to model your bow ties, basically you have to think how does that fit in my whole system. So we use the ICSI model about safety performance you see on the left-hand side. In a way, in a bow tie model, your technical safety barriers, your safety management system, your human organizational factor integration, all contribute to that model and to improve your safety barriers. You see part of it in the bow tie model as barriers, but you see also part of it is critical activities supporting your safety barriers. And constructing your models, it helps you to understand that and share that information. This is an example that I will not comment it in detail, but just to give you an idea, how does the bow tie model then look like? This is constructed based on a safety conversation with experts from both companies and to create that common understanding. We used simple language. We tried to use as less acronyms as possible just to really make sure that we had that common understanding when we created those bow ties. So that's really very quickly that first part of the bow tie model, but it also ties with incident investigation because that's a feedback loop that is very important, and Elaine is going to talk about this.
Thank you. Okay. So why do we do investigations? You know, we have the opportunity for learning really from those events. And the model here shows us that where we have major accidents, I mean, very fortunately, they happen quite rarely, you have a major opportunity to learn. But because they are infrequent, there is normally that sort of huge focus, a huge change to equipment, behaviors, and so on. And then life gets in the way, and we have that sort of organizational drift. You know, the other pressures become more important, and people start to forget. You know, we start to sort of move away and forget why some of the controls were in place or why they were so important to us. But when we learn from the sort of incidents and the lower level events, we have multiple opportunities for learning. We have lots of opportunities where we can look at, well, where are our controls? How effectively are they working? And particularly, you know, the safety barriers which are more technical, it's more obvious when those start to degrade and when those start to fail. But when we start to see problems with our safety management system or with the human and organizational factors, it can take some time. It can be less concrete. It can be, you know, it can be more of a slow movement rather than a fast movement. It's less difficult to detect, or more difficult to detect, less easy to put your finger on what exactly is happening. But by looking at our sort of near misses, our lower level incidents, it gives us an opportunity to understand how effectively our barriers are working and how we need to take care of those and where we need to put our focus really. And as I said, particularly where we are moving together as an organisation to look at how effectively the barriers are working in each place, where we can take the learning and how we can attribute that across the organisation. As Bjorn said, this is very much a work in progress, and this is our aim, and we are very much working towards this. And we have a programme in place to look at how we can do this more effectively. But we thought it was useful to tell you about our journey, so that is why we're here. So thinking about types of investigations, so the seriousness of the event is assessed on both the actual and the potential consequences, but it also considers the number of barriers that have failed or were missing in the incident that happened. The Événement de Sécurité Majeure, or ESM level, is assigned during a review which gathers together experts in various operational functions, and we assign them to 4 categories. We have based on the potential or the actual consequence and the number of barriers that have failed. Really quite simple, but this is sort of our approach and how we take it forward. It's not always perfect, and sometimes there are some disagreements and some differences in opinion because of the number of barriers that potentially had failed or the nature of these. But we're finding that more and more people are sort of taking this on board and working with it. So what have we learned? Well, the approach offers the opportunity, as I said, to really learn from those lower level events and look at the weaknesses to prevent the catastrophic, and that's our aim. As I said, it's not always perfect, and sometimes we have those disagreements, and which ones need further investigation. The way that we attribute it is that the more serious events, the ESM level 3 and 4, is much more detailed investigation. The lower level events, we still investigate, but to a sort of lesser degree. unless, of course, during the investigation something is uncovered that means that we need to have more focus there. But in those ESM 3 and 4s, we attribute quite a bit more effort to really understand how those barriers have failed and what needs to happen to improve and reduce the likelihood. It's also quite a fair approach, so we're learning about weaknesses in our system and we're avoiding the blame. So we're moving away from the person, the human error, the person who was holding the spanner at the time or driving the train at the time being the person at fault. So we're really looking at, the system levels issues. And as I said, we're working to improve our investigation techniques to really help people to understand what those are and really get to the bottom of what those contributing factors are and might be, and how we then transfer those learning into operations and maintenance. So this is our approach to have continuous improvement, and obviously as we work with our bow ties, we have it from both sides of the coin. We have both what we think are our barriers that are in place, but we also look at what is actually there and how is it actually working. And then we can understand more about the risks that we have in the business and how to manage them. So I'm just going to take you through a case study where we had a stranded train in Paris that happened a couple of years ago, where we had a train that was, sorry, I'm just going to get my notes. A train that was stranded in Paris for some time. It was a very hot day. It was in the peak of summer. It's 35 degrees outside. And as you can imagine, this happened during the rush hour on the approach to Gare du Nord. So quite a significant event for us. It happened around 6:30, 18:30 in the evening, and the passenger train had failed. The compressors had stopped working, and what that means is that there was no power and no ventilation on the train. So, as you can imagine, it started to get quite hot in that environment. But after 1.5 hours, passengers started to become quite agitated. As you can see in the picture, there was they tried to break the windows, and we were very close to losing control of that situation. Fortunately, we didn't. And what I mean by losing control of the situation is that passengers would detrain themselves onto the tracks. Obviously, a huge amount of risk and a very critical situation. The focus during that period was on moving the train. And I think that was very much, how do we get this train moving again? How do we move forward? When it became clear that we needed to evacuate passengers, that getting the train moving again just wasn't going to work, we needed to really get people off. It took another couple of hours before we actually had the tracks secure and had everything in place to be able to detrain the passengers. And the train was eventually evacuated 3.5 hours after the initial train failure. So as you can imagine, this was a significant event for us. We had a significant level of investigation and to really understand what had happened and the causes and the contributing factors towards that event. And I think from that, looking at, there was a lot of pressure from the infrastructure manager to keep trains moving. There was maybe a failure to take decisions at the right time, at the pivotal moment, and really thinking about those pressures and those agreements that we have in place when we are dealing with an event of this sort. So what we did in terms of the analysis, we carried out a bow tie analysis of this event, really to understand, as I said, where those barriers and controls are and how effectively they work. Through this bow tie analysis, obviously we look at the technical, we look at the safety management systems, and we look at the HOF controls in place that really contributed to both the failure, but also how we manage that and how we avoid that uncontrolled door opening and uncontrolled evacuation onto the tracks. But by looking at all of these factors, and actually where HOF comes in and is really important, it looks, you know, the bow tie analysis, we can look at, you know, how effective were the doors, were they locked, how effectively did the driver or the train manager communicate with each other, with the infrastructure manager, with the passengers, and so on. But actually, we found that really the critical point is about how we manage this situation from our crisis management centre, how we look at it from the operational control. And we realised that actually the key decision point is about when do we take the decision to start to plan for an evacuation. We may not always do this, we may not always need to, we may recover the situation in time, but we realised that we really needed to think about and plan for and have the start to enable evacuation within 30 minutes of a train failure. And that's something that we're really trying to embed it into the business, and we're looking in terms of our crisis management moving forward. But I think this really illustrates the value of HOF, particularly when you're looking at incidents and events and these types of sort of risk assessment in terms of looking beyond just the sort of frontline focus into that wider management and organisation of events. So as I said, I think I've covered all of this. So as I said, you know, bringing it all together, it really helps us in terms of looking at both the work as planned, the work as done, the type of events, because we know that the variability exists. And by understanding where that variability is, it really helps us develop the maturity of our risk assessments so that they are not just this sort of idealized view of our operation and of our railway, but they get closer to understanding that variability and how we support people to actually respond to those. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions in the room? Yes, we have one question upstairs and another one here. If one of my colleagues can... Okay, thank you very much. So, yeah. Okay, so you'll be second upstairs. Sorry.
So, hello, good morning. Luca Save from Deep Blue. Very, very interesting presentation, very inspirational. And I have a question concerning the way you update your models. So I guess you don't update your models every time you have an incident, but in most of the cases they are already there and you just change part of them, I guess. The way you change them, it is always after incidents or also based on, for example, monitoring activity from data log from the train, or for example from voluntary reporting or data collected by the instructors. So I don't know if my question is clear.
So both actually, but it's in design. Can you hear me? Is it okay? Yeah. So yes, we do it after events, so ESM4 type events. We have in our procedures, we do an update, we do a review of the bow tie that's foreseen, because we want the lessons learned to be integrated into the hazard register. So that's a key for us. And secondly, on the update, we are not there yet. We are constructing our bow ties. We've constructed our bow ties for the major risks with experts. And what we want to do now is to verify the quality of the barriers based on the management observations of procedures and those barriers. So really driving instructors going with drivers, observing how barriers are working, then feeding back on the quality of those barriers. If the quality is good, you know your barrier is working, or maybe if it's not working, how you need to analyze it. What is the supporting activity that doesn't work? Is it the description of the procedure that doesn't work? That's how you can then, and maybe you will also find new barriers, because that's, in this process, you have to be careful. You make choices, because a bow tie needs to be, you need to, manageable. If you have too many barriers, you will not be able to manage it. So you have to make choices about the barriers you put in your bow tie. You put the ones you're managing, not the ones that are very passive, that require no maintenance. They're probably not in your bow tie. They require very important maintenance. They're in your bow tie. So that's how you make choices. But that's how we update it, or plan to update it. Yeah.
Good morning, Lotfi Bougelmi from CER. I want, first of all, to congratulate you about all this good work. Probably a question for Björn. You mentioned the fact that you were working about the construction of your hazard log. I wanted to know what are the challenges that you are coping in this task, and how do you connect so your hazard log register and the work which is ongoing on the bow ties as well?
Well, today we have many registers. Every project, every major change has a hazard register. And then in the end of the project, you have like exported constraints that you need to manage, and that you manage into. But we have two organizations that have separate systems. The idea is to put everything in a bow tie hazard register system. So that's why we're constructing the major risks, but because that's really, you want a hazard register. What we believe is that once you've built it for your major risks, you probably have 90% of your hazard register. And our construction confirms that. So I think that, and that will be the bridge to bring everything into one system. But you need a coherent system before you can really bring it together in a meaningful way where everybody that is currently using your systems find their information. So I hope that helps you understand how we are doing this. Otherwise, please ask a follow-up question.
Yes, thank you. Just probably a last one to understand better. When you do this work of investigation and identifying your contributing factors, barriers that failed, and so on, is there an update of the hazard log register which is made as an outcome of this work?
Yes. For instance, in the incident we showed, the critical activity is decision-making on evacuation. So, and it's our study, we used actually a study of our SSB to establish that 30-minute time frame. And that 30-minute time frame is something you integrate into your bow tie system and saying, well, obviously you don't see the whole bow tie because you have, like your barrier there is some threads under each barrier, and there you identify the risk of not deciding within 30 minutes. And that's your memory to say, okay, that's why we have that 30 minutes in our system, so that it's not a rule, it's not an external rule, it's an internal risk assessment based on experience and external and other risk assessments.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question here, which will be our last question for now.
Okay, so you said you investigate these events 3 and 4 very deep, and 2 a little bit less. But my question is, do you also investigate the number 1 events to get information where and why it works proper, maybe to get good practice examples?
Not yet, but it's exactly that philosophy. We want to have like the whole picture and not always say, well, you know, it failed. So it's really a proportion of your 1s against your 2s and 3s gives you your real performance, because the more your 1s you have, the more you can say, look, the system works in a lot of ways. And that's data for your barriers again as well, because your 1s is telling you something about the quality of the barriers in your system. but we don't have the methodology yet to link it directly in the system because we're still building that assessment of the barriers. But yeah, that's the intent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause for Björn and Elaine. And for the next part of this session 4, I now call to the stage Florence Magnin-Lotte, Pippa Trahan et Yann Kaoué, sorry, I'm speaking French now. All three from the SNCF group. That's why, because they are French names. Please give them a warm round of applause. So Florence, you are head of Health and Safety Culture Division. Pippa, you are head of Health and Safety for the regional transport sector. And Yann, you are health expert and referent of the Apport network at TER SNCF. Please, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Florence Magnin-Lotte, and I'm an organizational and human factors specialist, as he just said. So, as you can see, we are three. In the first part of our presentation, I will quickly present the SNCF group so that you can understand our organization. In the second part, Pippa will present the HOF approach at TER, and finally, Yann will give its practical point of view with some examples. SNCF Group represents 283,000 employees all over the world. It is divided into several independent companies. There is a company in charge of the infrastructure management and a company for the stations management. Obviously, we also have railway undertakings for passengers and for freight. I work in the lead company within the safety group department, and I'm more in charge of developing and promoting human and organizational factors and safety culture in all the companies. Pippa and Yann work for SNCF Voyager for the regional transport activity. Following several major rail accidents between 2013 and 2015, we decided to launch a major safety program called PRISM, which stands for Proactive, Risks, Interfaces, Simplification, Management and Equipment. This program, still ongoing, aims to improve SNCF overall safety performance by transforming our safety culture. And in order to work... I didn't do anything.
Oui. Something's going on upstairs. Better. Yes.
No problem.
In the meantime, the wallet, because if I don't find a person, I take it. Huh? Nobody? Oh, okay. So maybe someone from yesterday. And the slide is back.
Thank you.
Please.
Just like Björn said before, we have to work in the same way with the same language, and this is why we decided to define our own common safety culture model composed of 7 characteristics. And all the projects included in the program PRISM contribute to one or several of those characteristics. To do that, we propose different tools like bowtie, like tree causes analysis, like just and fair approach, and also we decided to develop the human and organizational factors. So as a first step, we launched a campaign to raise awareness of our managers through a large HOF training program that covers the basic knowledge. A total of 5,000 executives and managers benefited from this awareness campaign. At the same time, a leadership training program was also launched for top managers. And then, in 2017, we decided to deploy a specific training program in order to develop the skills of designated agents and build a community of facilitators to support leaders in their roles and thus to improve safety culture. To build and run this program, we made a partnership with the Institute for Industrial Safety Culture, ICSI. This network of human and organizational factors correspondents has a role to play in promoting and developing all our safety culture models' characteristics. Today, we have trained over 300 HOF correspondents disseminated into operational entities. The training program is spread over 6 to 8 months, combining e-learning models and peer coaching. It lasts approximately 90 hours. To be as efficient as possible, the training is meant to be an engaging training and coaching program that combines several learning techniques. Indeed, it is both interactive and collaborative to ensure trainees' commitment and progress. The training gives each trainee the ability to fulfill their mission of correspondent. More specifically, HOF correspondents actively promote safety culture at any time by applying just and fair approach, by implementing HOF in new designs or for change during work and for incident analysis, by helping managers to develop their safety leadership, by promoting non-technical skills, by encouraging cooperation, and by providing training about all the safety culture topics. And now, I'll let Pippa and Jan explain to you how this HOF network is working at TER.
Thank you, Florence. Just to quickly present the regional transport network in France, we cover the whole country, excluding the Parisian area, operating in 11 regions through business units with the headquarters in Lyon. It consists of a workforce of over 27,000 staff, regrouping the professions of train drivers, ticket controllers, station management, rolling stock maintenance, and customer assistant and sales staff. Following on from the ambition of the group to promote HOF awareness and the difficulty to improve our safety results at TER, the decision was made in January 22 by the Executive Committee of TER, the National Director, the Regional Directors, and our Safety Director, Bertrand Camus, who is here today, to create a national network of multi-skilled professionals at the middle management level. The network is known as APOR, which in French stands for Agir pour la performance des organisations à risque à TER, or taking action within organizations at risk at TER. Following the opening of the French regional transport to privatization, we also aim to have a HOF correspondent in each future subsidiary created. This is imposed in the safety management system of each subsidiary, and the reference will become part of our APOR network. As you can see from the map presented on the left, the network covers the whole of France, with over 60 HOF correspondents who have followed the training process described by Florence just previously, from the 3 key areas of train drivers, ticket controllers, and rolling stock maintenance. We also have 3 experts who coordinate and animate the network alongside national safety managers. We are currently training 1 to 2 experts and about 10 correspondents each year, and I have just started the training session myself. Monthly steering committees take place to decide on the strategy of the network and to prioritize and organize actions within with a conference once a year which reunites all the regional correspondents, and our last conference was last week in Lyon. This national coverage allows us to implement actions locally, support local initiatives, and adapt to the constraints of each area. The engagement of the top-level management was essential in promoting the values of safety culture and to ensure the success of the network, as was the choice to train voluntary operational middle management and not train HOF specialists who would not have the field experience or the hands-on approach. One of our first actions was to create 4 booklets as a practical guide for managers on the subjects presented on the top line. The experts have created and conduct training courses in each domain for operational managers. Each correspondent conducts a project within his training period to work on facilitating a specific issue in their local domain of expertise. These projects are shared within the network and best practices are duplicated when appropriate. The network also conducts benchmarking within other industries in France, such as EDF, the Army, hospitals or Keolis, to capture best practices reusable in the railway industry. The network provides support for entities with studies by experts, which Jan would explain in a minute. And the network is based on the principles of freeing of speech, to develop confidence and to encourage the sharing of hazard detection in dangerous situations with the ambition to ensure that the culture of safe production is disseminated right down to the operators, anchoring the best practices based on their shared experiences. Jan, one of our experts, will now describe some of the more concrete actions he has led and that he continues to follow.
Thank you, Peppa. Hello, I'm Jan Cahu, and today I'm going to share my experience of implementing HOF at TER based on a case study of the West Provence line in the Sud region. I've decided to present my work through a timeline with 3 key phases: the design phase, the operation phase, and the feedback or analysis phase. By working backwards, the idea is to show you how the last phase is in this timeline is actually the first phase that nourishes the others. Every incident with learning or risk analysis potential has been subjected to in-depth analysis. And after going through the feedbacks, we identified 3 major weak points: situational awareness, human limitations, and the absence of feedback. Faced with this, we developed training for agents, both managers and operators, and also booklets, which we provide to the trainees to help them deepen their understanding of concepts like the mechanisms of error or just and fair approach. This approach is supported by the implication of interview technique and post-incident analysis. The goal here is simple: to understand what happened, not to determine who's guilty or look for excuses. This is part of a continuous improvement process aimed at uncovering what provoked an event. And what drives us is to become more robust in managing risks. Following this training session, we've seen a noticeable deepening of the analysis and the focused search for contributing factors during post-event reviews in various areas. Now, moving on to the operational phase. Our discussion with field agents revealed the impact of managerial culture in many organizations. It's a culture centered on rules and procedures, with little involvement from truth on the ground. Your objective is to push all employees toward an integrated safety culture where everyone has a role to play, and where management encourages employee participation and initiative to a more participatory management style. The implementation of focus group has proven to be a continuous progress process, helping us identify levers to improve our organization's function, focusing on themes such as work content, social relationship and support, personnel development, organizational structures, work-life balance, and the physical environment. Management alignment is crucial, from the executive committee and all the way down to the manager, ensuring that selected action are carried out and implemented. Another key axis we adopted is enabling free expressions. This fundamental change is essential to transforming the safety culture. For example, we set up open discussion space through multi-professional work groups, driver, stopover agents, chauffeur agents, and organized workshop where agents can freely share their experience and concerns. This discussion revolves around 3 questions. In your opinion, what will be the next work accident on your site? The second, in your opinion, what will be the next railway accident on your site? And what, in your opinion, what is the most dreaded accident you that you wouldn't be able to face? This moment has been crucial in giving teams a platform to express themselves about risky and dangerous situations, which are often poorly perceived and or even ignored by management. Finally, integrating human and organizational factors from the design phase allows us to create safer, more efficient and more cost-effective systems better suited to users. This is not only promote project success, but also improve stakeholders' satisfaction while ensuring compliance with applicable standards. Ergonomic studies of organizations also help better anticipate interactions between workers and their work environments. This prevents issues related to interface ergonomics or communication, which could negatively impact performance or lead to errors. By placing humans at the center of our organizations and involving all stakeholders in overall performance, we recognize that performance is not just about the goal or the result. It's about the path to achieving it.
Thank you, Jan. Our global approach has an impact not only on safety, but on production. You can see on this slide the very encouraging evolution of the results for the health and safety at work on our test line. They have better social dialogue and fewer strikes. The number of accidents at work has sharply reduced. It's the top part of the triangle. It's been divided by 6 in just 1 year. These 2 factors means that they respect their operating budget, making them more competitive and allowing them potentially to operate with fewer staff. They have more reports of dangerous situations or near misses, which is the yellow bit of the triangle. They have doubled the number in 1 year, and as previously example, this is a real source of a learning experience. They have achieved an impressive progression in staff engagement rate in surveys concerning well-being at work and adherence to company policy, which are the little circles at the top. We are currently focusing our work on the deployment of the just and fair approach and reliability practices. In 2025, a particular focus will be made on the briefing based on shared experience of our reference from the different work sectors. Our territorial network will allow us to diffuse best shared practices. We are also in the process of putting into place the conditions to reproduce this safety culture and good results in less mature geographical areas by reinforcing the modules delivered in our training processes, from our new recruits up to our operational and top managers, using the existing network of HOF correspondents to participate in the identification of targets, methods, and to deliver the training sessions. The changes that the regional transport will be going through in the next few years to adapt to the privatisation are phenomenal, and our capacity to accompany the teams to ensure that human and organisational factors are taken into account from the ground up is essential in ensuring the continual high level of safety of the system and the health and well-being of our operators.
Thank you, Peppa. And to conclude, we can say that in a complex, highly prescribed system that is undergoing a rapid change, taking HOF into account contributes to improve safety culture. Indeed, the integration of the PRISM program and its HOF network, supported by the highest functions of the SNCF company, enabled a real transformation of our safety culture. However, implementing a policy to improve safety culture is a long an ongoing process. The major challenges are to change behavior and to maintain momentum in the long term. It is necessary to ensure that the safety cultures continue to progress with constant adaptation of practices to feedback from the field. Managerial alignment must also remain a priority to ensure that agents and executives remain fully engaged in this approach. Thank you for your attention, and we would also thank ERA for giving us the opportunity to share our experience in HOF topics.
Thank you very much. Any questions you might have for our three speakers during the panel, please, because we are running out of time.
It's just that Jan will be leaving before the questions. So
if you have one question, but one important and relevant question for Jan, it's now. Or never.
If not, we'll save it for later. If not, I'll answer.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Sorry about that. And for the next part of the session 4, I now call Luca Rizzetto to the stage. Please, a round of applause for Luca. So, Luca, you're the CEO of DITS. DITS being the spin-off company of the Sapienza University of Rome.
Yes, correct.
So, please, welcome. And I've been told I have a challenge for you, Luca.
Okay.
We have 20 minutes and 20 slides.
Okay.
So you need to stick to 1 minute per slide.
I will do it. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to present a methodology we developed for integrating human and organizational factors in the safety management systems and for develop safety culture of train operators. It is called SEW, which stands for Sharing Enterprise Wellbeing. As this is said, DITS is a small company, it's a spin-off company of Sapienza University of Rome, which develops and implements services for train operators in different fields, for instance, support for the implementation of their safety management system, training on railway safety, risk analysis, and so on. We are 15 researchers, and then the other shareholders of our company are Sapienza itself and Hitachi Rail STS. Our SEW is based on the principle which is stated by ERA in their guidelines on safety management system requirements, that an efficient control of risk can be only achieved through a process that brings together 3 critical dimensions. So the technical, the human, and the organizational component. Another principle on which our model is based is the management maturity model of ERA, which developed 23 safety areas of the safety management system, which are divided in 7 main safety chapters, according to ISO high-level structure, of course, and also according to the CMS on safety management systems requirements. SEW directly develop and supports the development of 11 of these 23 SMS areas, but of course the other areas we can say are driven by the improvement of those on which SEW operates directly. But what is SEW? SEW is a synergic application of engineering and psychological methods. For instance, I'm an engineer, a mechanical engineer, and I have also colleagues from the psychological aspects. And SEW comprises mainly these 7 steps that can be changed in the order according to the characteristics of the organization we are going to support. So a first step is the analysis of the company safety culture. The second step is a GEMS implementation of the hazard log. So each hazard is analyzed, and the human and organizational factors related root causes are analyzing according to the taxonomy of the generic error modeling system developed by Reason in 1990. So according to 4 main human errors that can happen, so related to attention, to memory failures, to rule or based knowledge failures, and related to violations. A third step is the intervention on safety culture. A fourth step is the introduction and monitoring of specific macro indicators that are also defined according to the GEMS taxonomy. Then we perform a SU training on the methods that must be implemented by the operator. We together implement of relevant procedure, such as the risk analysis, the investigating procedures, and so on. And finally, we support the company for the self-development. Two very important steps, and also original steps of our methodology, are the ones related to a survey, so an analysis on the safety culture and on the organizational climate of the company. These are performed by 2 original tools that are 2 surveys, and are accompanied by focus group on each homogeneous groups of workers within the company. The output of this phase is an overview of the HOF issues in the company and a set of risk control measures of the socio-organizational area of the company. These control measures are in line with the contributing factors that are stated in the draft CSM of the European Union for assessing the safety and the performance level of railway operators. It's interesting to highlight that an analysis conducted on about 1,000 railway workers showed that there are some homogeneous groups of workers that present a poor socialization level, and then there are mainly the ones related to maintenance and to train preparation. Of course, this could be for them to have a higher tendency to the risk of violation of procedures, because they are a little bit detached from the leadership. Which is the main tool for developing safety culture and for developing socialization among the different working groups. In our model are the safety table in which representatives of each groups of workers work together in order to face safety issues and to solve them. This method seems to be effective in the railway sector, especially because we were able to identify a strongly decrease in occupational accidents. So these are the statistics, for instance, of 2 applications we made to our main infrastructure manager, Rete Ferroviaria Italiana, in 2 regional departments of Ancona and Torino. SU has been applied to different train operators, both infrastructure manager and railway undertakings. But today I'm going to show you 2 case studies of this that are related to a very small company that is in the Tuscany region, Trasporto Ferroviario Toscano, which produces less than 1 million train kilometers per year, mainly of passenger trains, but also a little bit of freight trains, and has less than 100 employees. The other one is bigger, is Trenitalia Tiber, which mainly operates in the Emilia-Romagna region, produces only passenger trains for about 17 million train kilometers. There is a typo here, so it's quite bigger, and has about 1,400 employees. Oh, it's interesting to note that this is the timeline of SU implementation on TFT, that for small companies, after a first analysis of the safety culture and a first very basic training on/off, it was very simple to establish at the very beginning of our intervention the safety table. The safety table became, because of course these are quite big families because are very small companies, and the safety table became the driving force for face every safety issues and for developing socialization and the safety culture within the company. Since 2022, the safety table managed in Trasporto Ferroviario Toscano 31 specific actions. 23 of those were already closed. And also the monitoring we made on off macro indicators that are a ratio of events divided by train kilometers that occurs in the company and that are related to the GEMS taxonomy. So there are indicators for errors caused by attention, by violation, or a mix of them. It seems to be that SU is very effective on the violation caused events. A little bit less on attention, maybe because our methodology is more oriented to develop the safety culture and the socialization to involve people, and less on ergonomic issues that are more related to the attention. Also, we monitor our intervention with a self-assessment of the company related to the maturity model of their SMS. And for instance, for Trasporto Ferroviario Toscano, we noticed a very good improvement of their level. They reached the level of 3 on 5, so consistent maturity 11. And different areas, 4 areas, reached the level that is the proactive level, so the anticipating level. Regarding Trenitalia Tiber, it is to notice that for bigger companies, before implementing the safety table, is very useful to support the leadership, make it aware, and make it coherent the safety policy of the organization with the procedures. It is also interesting to notice that for big organization, of course, our intervention is not the only one. There are also very important initiatives that they carried out by themselves, but the important thing is that they are in the same direction. For instance, since 3 years ago, they organized an annual meeting, an annual safety day, that goes in the same direction of our implementation. Regarding the monitoring of macro indicators on Trenitalia Tiber, we have to say that, of course, we are very likely, fortunately, we are in a safe condition in the rail transport because rail transport is safe and the production of this company is not too high. So in order to have more consistent database, we need more years to analyze the trends. But we can say that more or less the trends are in line with the Trasporto Ferroviario Toscano. So we think that our model has good effectiveness on violation especially. But of course, this data should be reinforced by other data, also because there is the effect of Corona in the period from 2020 and 2022, in which the production of rail service was very, very low. So these data, in some cases, are not so reliable. Also for Trenitalia Tipper, the growth in the maturity model, in the maturity level was significant, and also for them, the self-assessment lead to a 3 on 5 score, and also there are some areas that grow significantly to an anticipating level. So, of course, we are a small, we can say now we are a small community. We would like to enlarge this community because we are researchers. So we would like to share our model with other persons, with everyone who could be interested in. So we would like to launch in the middle of December a call for every expert to participate, to write our theory on the SU, and also a guideline for its implementation. So we would like to publish these 2 documents in June 2025. And of course, this document will be for free, available for everyone. And so we would like to enlarge this community in Italy, but also in other countries if there are experts that are interested in our methodology. Okay, so from my side, that's all. Many thanks to you and to Ira for the opportunity. I hope I was
did it.
in time. I don't know. I did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And we even have 1 or 2 minutes for questions.
Okay,
So,
great.
Congratulations. Do we have any questions for Luca?
Okay.
I see. Yeah, here. Reina, please.
Thank you for your presentation and also the nice invitation for June 2025. My question is, do you already have participants from Italy or other countries who are involved in the model you are developing?
Yeah, in Italy, yes. We are a small community. We have, of course, ourselves. We are a group of engineers, psychologists, and also representatives of companies for which we are working. Outside Italy, at the moment, no. We are only Italian at the moment.
And one other question, you were talking about poor socialization. Can you elaborate a little bit more what you mean by that?
Yeah, the poor socialization, we mean the fact that these professional, these working groups don't feel involved in the safety culture of the company. They feel very close in their atmosphere. They develop their own procedures that sometimes are not the written procedures, and it's very dangerous. So they are not so involved. They feel like, okay, I go to work at 8 in the morning, I have to do my tasks, and then I go back. Okay, I work for, I don't know, Trenitalia, NTV, SNCF, but I don't care so much. I would like to get my salary, and I don't think so much involved in my in my organization. And I don't feel how my work is crucial for the safety of passengers, for instance. And this is a very big problem in our opinion.
Thank you very much. Okay, one last question and then for the panel. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Yara from ESM. Thank you very much for your presentation. I was curious about what kind of items did you use to measure the attention and violation indicators?
Okay.
Thank you.
No, this is the measurement of this indicator is, let's say, a priori, in the sense we make a root analysis, and in our judgment, some mistakes, some errors in the hazard log are related to this kind of human errors. Then it's an iterative procedure. So we make the monitoring, and then after a period that should be consistent. So for instance, 2 or 3 years for small companies cannot be enough. We make a check and we say, okay, we did the good assumptions in the sense we correlate the real human error to these incidents or near miss or accidents, so the real root causes. But maybe we can do also a wrong assumption in the first stage. So we have to change the assumption. So it's an iterative process that in the first stage is an a priori association made by our expertise and the expertise of the responsible of the companies for who we are working with. I don't know if it's clear. Otherwise, there is the possibility also to talk about it during the panel or during the coffee break. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Some applause for Luca, please. And for the last part of session 4, I now call to the stage Denis Jekyll. Welcome, Denis. So some applause for Denis, please. You are safety officer for DB InfraGO.
Yes.
Right? And you are going to deliver a presentation that you made in cooperation with Marcus Arrhenius, who couldn't be with us physically today, but who will be there during the panel online to reply to some of your questions, if you have.
Yes.
Please, floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, hello, my name is Denis Jekyll. I'm here to present the HOF approach in our monitoring system. But before we start and dive into details, I want to point out what monitoring actually means. Therefore, I brought to you a picture where you can see one of our signalers executing tasks and a monitoring officer that is observing the signaler. The monitoring officer observes the executioning of tasks, the correct executioning of tasks, and the documents that the signaler has to handle. And that system, a monitoring officer and signalers, is implemented via a monitoring cycle. You can see on the left side the detection of deviations, and on the right side you can see the derivation of measures. And what we did is we implemented an HOF analysis in between those phases, because the derivation of measures can only be efficient if you are focusing on the right causes. And basis of that HOF analysis is the assumption that humans often act with best intentions, so the errors they commit in most cases are not intentionally. It's more likely that there are other factors at work, namely human and organizational factors, and those factors therefore should be the focus for derivation of measures. If you are not focusing those factors and focusing instead of the human error, all we will achieve is measures like intensified training which often is recognized as a punishment, and whereas focusing on the factors, whereas, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. This is my first time. Whereas focusing on the factors gives us or provides us very good remedy, because they do focus on the relevant causes. And asking which factors should be assessed, we can have a look in the upcoming Common Safety Method ASLP. This document provides us a good and thorough list of factors, but considering every factor for every deviation we are detecting can be very exhausting and very complex. So what we also did is we developed a classification scheme, and starting from the human error, and asking the question whether the person has knowledge about the applicable procedures or not, we can analyze. So, if the person has no knowledge, we can analyze further with the Rasmussen model, skill-based, rule-based, or knowledge-based errors. And if the person has knowledge but acted otherwise, there might be some situational or efficiency-based factors at work. And overall, but in any case, this classification scheme facilitates the Hof analysis with a pre-selection, and it's therefore very helpful, and a helpful link between the human error and the underlying causes. And pre-selection developed. What I want to show here with this slide is that we also developed something named safety dialogue. So the analysis and the derivation of measures is taking place together with staff. Our managers are holding a meeting, the safety dialogue, and they are analyzing and deriving measures together. So to conclude and to summarize so far, we could say that the rule deviations can result from multiple factors, and those human and organizational factors therefore can contribute jointly to the human error, and therefore the human error should be the starting point for the analysis and not the final answer. Also, the inclusion of the operator is essential, and if done correctly, there are plenty of access points and controlling elements for improving safety. It was a very short presentation, but now I'm finished and open for question. On the last slide, you will see the conclusion in text format again, but not worth to mention again so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You did very well for your first time. Thank you. Do we have any question for Markus? We kept in the panel discussion with, and then let's have the coffee break sooner, which is very good because it was shorter. So let's enjoy the coffee break now and back at 11:20, please. Thank you. So, time to resume. So, I hope you enjoyed the coffee break, the beautiful sunshine. Hello? Hello, hello? Yeah, the beautiful sunshine outside. I don't know if you realize how lucky you are to have this weather. You probably don't, but believe me, this is amazing. So, we'll now conclude this conference with session 5, dedicated to interface management, external stakeholders as well. And without further delay, I'd like to invite to the stage Yana Carly and Elise Grison. So please give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
So, Jana, you are an engineer working for Railinium. Am I saying it right? Yeah.
Yes.
French Institute for Technological Research, dedicated to the railway sector. And Elise, you are a research project manager in human cognition, working for SNCF Group. Welcome.
Thank you very much. So we're really pleased to see so many of you attending this conference. It's a great opportunity for us to present our work and how we integrate human factors in railway safety. So today we'll talk about safety at pedestrian tracks crossing and how we design safety systems based on human cognitive understanding. And it's a project, it's as part of a project gathering multiple partners. And as the project is still ongoing, we'll talk more about the methodology and less about detailed results. So first, Elise will talk about the context at the origin of the project, and she'll give a broad overview of it. And I will then carry on with the behavioral studies that are carried out in the project. So, Elise, hand over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jana, for the introduction word. So, I will tell you the story of the project. So, for the beginning, what is pedestrian track crossing? It's an installation which is in a French little train station, but I believe that there is many of it in Europe. And they allow passengers to go from a platform to another directly on the rail when there is no footbridge or underground passage to make the joining the platform. They are installed in 900 stations in France, and most of them are equipped with a spectrogram, which is flashing when train approaching the station. So it's flashing in red and mentioning stop. We expect that user will stop when they see the pictogram, and so they will be safe when train approaching. But there are still accidents every year since it has been implemented around 50 years ago. And every year there is around 4 to 5 accidents. And despite the introduction to improvement to the system or improvement of safety signage in train station, we still observe those accidents. But there is no problem with our system, in generally speaking. But when analyzing accidents, we do observe that there might are some behavioral explanation. For around 50% of the accidents, we can say that maybe instructions, so the pictogram, signage, etc., have not been seen by people because they are doing their stuff as a traveler, so they are going taking their train, they're speaking with another, listening to music, looking at their phone, or they might have some pressure. They maybe have some delay and will want to catch their train. They might be influenced by other people in the station doing what they are doing. So our system does not help them to see information. And for the other half, maybe they saw it, they saw the system or they look at it, but they might not have understood either the system or the situation. Maybe they don't understand that this system is telling a train is approaching and this is dangerous for you. So from this understanding of accident, we have tried since several years to improve safety based on what we have done. So we have tried to improve the pictogram, adding everything, other things. And usually, how it's done, this improvement, is more on what we have called a classical approach, which is based on engineering. So the idea is to develop some prototype, some improvement, say, okay, with this pictogram, I will also add this thing, because I saw it in this country, or I saw it, or I can do it, just So I will try and develop things. But with this approach, the problem is that it takes really time and money to develop a system, to be developed in real life. And in consequence, we can test a lot of systems. We test one system by one system, and it takes 2-3 years to really give an idea of maybe it's interesting or not to keep it. The second limit is that in the testing phases, as we are in real life, we lack of control. We lack of control of what we are testing and what are the results. Because maybe when we test it, the weather conditions are not the same where there are no improvement tested. Maybe the people we are looking at have some specificity that we can't know just by doing observation, and things like that. So analysis, conclusion, and decision-making are really hard to do, and we can't gather really strong proof that we made improvement or not with this technique. And it's really difficult to objectify what are the improvements we have done if we seem to have some. So what things we have improved, do people see our sign or do they understand it? It's really difficult to know that. So after years and years of this approach, finally, SNCF Réseau, which are in charge of the PTC and especially the safety, security, and risk direction, decide to launch a research project to really come back to the roots of the problem and try to become a new reflection about the safety at PTC and really understand it more and try to make a big step of improvement. So they came to us, as I am part of the research direction of SNCF, and especially a cognitive program, and they asked us to lead a research project to elaborate, design, and test a new generation of PTC system, which lead to a safety improvement. And we agreed to that. If not, I will not be there. So, to give you some overview of the project and give you the way we respond, I will give the project overview. So, the objective of the project is still the same. We want to develop a new generation of PTC which are safer, but based on human understanding. And for that, we will forget of what existing yet. So we will forget the pictogram, etc. We will root our reflection really on human behavior understanding, so on literature, on cognitive aspects, but also on biomechanical aspects, because people are walking, they have luggage, etc., and this is a really important aspect of locomotion in train station. Then we will develop some idea, concept, but not too much developed and not industrialized, really concept, to test them and objectify their potential efficiency and behavior. So we will develop a situation platform that Jana will tell you a lot after, and we will test every concept if it has a chance to be better than what is imagined now, or if there is nothing. And with the idea to reduce risky behavior and also number of accidents. So the idea, finally, will not to take a classical approach as I have defined before, but to take a cognitive approach with a really ground the development of system on what literature says, on experimental proof of efficiency in ecological context. Ecological context as context close to reality but safe. And we will ground our decision and base our selection on objective data obtaining from our test. And the idea will be to not only reduce risk and by adding safety system, but just understand causes and reduce risk by taking the causes. To do that, we didn't go alone, as you might have understood. So we decided to work especially with Wallenium because they have a strong expertise in HOF that we haven't because we are more in cognition and experimental studies. So we put put together both of the good work that can be done in that discipline. We also work with the Polytechnical University, which have a strong expertise in biomechanical studies, and we were attached to, from the beginning of the project, to work with people who will be in charge to industrial development and technical development after. So we work with SNCF Réseau, but also with an industry, which is SCLE, which is used to develop signage in rail. And it was important for us to have them from the beginning, because the idea was they understood what we have done, what we have found from a cognition perspective, to adhere to the demarche, to the process, and to be really confident and really convinced that it will be good to develop what we have think at the beginning. For the different phases of the project, we have 4 big phases that we have already begun, because I forgot to say, but it was indicated. We start early in 2023, and we are expected to finish in 2026. So we first begin with an analysis of literature. We have done some benchmarking and also expertise workshop. And we built on 6 principles to develop after that concept. The principles were roots really on things that you might know, such as level of situation awareness, but also more embedded cognition theories that are really interesting. And the idea was to see how, if we combine this theory, what we can develop then as a concept. These principles have been tested through different methodologies, such as quantitative studies on hundreds and hundreds of participants, which were doing a task of crossing, but in a really simple environment. And we complete that with qualitative studies to really go depth in the understanding of the principle we developed. And we made some technical evaluation to be sure that we are not just somewhere where technical development were impossible after. And from that, we select 3 best principles that will lead the following of the project in the conceptualization of our device. And for now, we are in the more important phases of the project, which is the experimental one. So for these phases, we develop a platform to test really deeply the behavior and the reaction of participants to our new concept. And the idea is to run different studies to build on our understanding and improve our system and revise what we have done to be sure that we take all the parameters. And from that, with that, we will add some biomechanical investigation on what we developed. And we will take also technical, legal, and financial analysis, because our objective is to, at the end, build on a decision matrix, which will integrate all these indicators, so behavioral one, technical, legal, and cost one, to deliver that to the decision maker, that will put where they want their interest, if they want to be 100% safe on the behavioral aspect, if they want to make a little bit more investment or not, and they will select, finally, the new PTC. And in final phases, we will go finally, and not in the first phases, finally we will go in the rail environment to finish some technical tests. And we expect to have a new generation of PTC at the end. And I will let now Jana explain really in depth how we want to do our experimental development.
Thank you, Elise. So I will now carry on with the behavioral studies that are carried out in the project. So regarding the methodological choice, we rapidly understood that field studies would not allow for an objective and controlled evaluation of the safety concept developed. Indeed, the event we want to study implies the crossing of rail tracks that are open to traffic. And so because we're interested in the behavior of pedestrians when they approach such crossings and when trains are approaching. And so this doesn't allow for the collection of objective data, but rather subjective ones. It's an event difficult to witness due to the rarity of its occurrences. We've got some uncontrolled situation parameters because we are in an open area. And with the aim of guaranteeing the participants' safety, it would be too big of a risk to make them actually cross rail tracks with running trains. And so with the current technological landscape, mixed reality came as an obvious solution to address these issues. And so indeed, with mixed reality, it allows for a strong realism of the situation that you want to reproduce. And it allows for the collection of objective data because it supports the use of virtual reality. And thanks to the feeling of immersion that is provided with virtual reality, it ensures that participants will have quite a rather natural behavior. And so all of this without having the constraints of the field studies that I just mentioned before. And so to implement mixed reality, we developed a testing platform really to reproduce in a realistic way the situation studied. And so this platform is made of a physical platform and a virtual one. So about the physical platform, it is set to reproduce a part of a train station true to scale. So for the purpose of the project, we had, it was made of 2 platforms, a portion of a double-track railway and a PTC. But all the elements are modular, so we can also design other environments. The virtual platform has been developed to be synchronized with the physical environment and is using, of course, virtual reality. And so all the details of a station have been reproduced in details, so all the features, such as, for example, the lighting conditions, the train movements, everything can be set up in the virtual reality environment, and it is said to be adaptive, so any environment can be modeled as well. And so this platform allows for the collection of various data, so we can record, of course, behavioral and physiological data. For example, with a virtual reality headset, we can collect and measure the gaze behavior as well as head movements. And we can also, with cameras, record kinematics such as the accelerations and decelerations of body limbs. So here you've got screenshots of the physical platform modeled in the virtual reality environment. And so you can see also that the you can imagine that the virtual reality environment can pivot relative to the physical platform to optimize, in fact, the area of the platform. So regarding the principle of the behavioral studies, these studies are based on immersive scenarios where participants are asked to move around the train station with the aim to evaluate various services and equipment in the station. And so, in fact, the participants are not informed of the real purpose of the study. We are analyzing as well some risk factors. We've got distracting elements. We're interested in evaluating the effect of listening to music, using a smartphone, or carrying a piece of luggage, the effect of these on the behavior of the pedestrian. And we've got also environmental factors such as lighting conditions, train's movement, and the influence of other passengers. So, of course, we also analyze and evaluate the safety systems concept that we developed. And so throughout the studies, they are compared with each other, but also with the baseline, which is no safety system at all. And so the measure that we make, in fact, for each participant, so each participant is required to cross the PTC 16 times during a scenario. And so for each crossing, their behavior is recorded. And so each participant encounters only one safety system in the study and only one distracting element. So regarding the storytelling, indeed we had to design scenarios that are meaningful for the participants, but without having them knowing the real purpose of the study. And so this is the context that were given to them. So we tell them that we are interested in their movement strategies inside train stations with the aim of rating newly available equipment, and that we want to acquire new knowledge to better understand their movement strategies and also their potential needs in terms of services and equipment offering in the station. And so each participant will encounter a scenario which is set that way. So they are on a weekend break. The first part of the experiment corresponds to their outward journey, and the second part of the experiment to the return journey. They will have to achieve defined goals inside the train stations, and their opinion will be asked on new equipment inside the station. So here you've got an example of an objective given to a participant. So you've got new charging terminals that have been installed on the platforms. And so the participant have to go and have a look at this new piece of equipment. And a question will be asked to the participant. As you can see, do you think the charging terminals are visible enough? And so, of course, to achieve this goal, the participants will have to cross the PTC. And there might be, depending on the conditions, there might be running trains, train stopping at the station, and things like that. Things like that, the factors that I mentioned just before. So regarding the data that we collected and the measures we make, we collect the walking speed of the participant. We collect their time for crossing the PTC. Also the number of risky behaviors, so for example the number of collisions with trains, but it's safe because it's virtual ones in this study. We collect also the stopping distance from the PTC edge, so when the participant will approach the edge of the platform, at which distance from the edge of the platform will they stop when they will detect a train approaching, for example. We also measure their eyes movement, so with a virtual reality headset, as well as their head orientation. So we developed 3 studies to test and improve the concept that we developed. And so the first study served as a baseline for the second and the third one, and was carried out over last spring and summer. So this one is done. The second study is about to start next week, and this study will test the 3 initial safety concepts that we developed in the previous phases of the project. And these concepts will be improved and tested in the third study, and that will be carried out in spring next year. And so the aim is really to improve, in fact, this safety equipment throughout these 3 studies. And so in each study, we had 100 participants taking part. So as I said, the project, as I said and Ellie said, the project is still ongoing, and so I will give some details just about the first study that has already been carried out. So regarding the participants, here are the inclusion criteria. So we had 100 participants with an equal part of women and men. They were all fluent French speakers from 18 to 60 years old. They had normal or corrected to normal vision. They had no virtual reality sickness, and they could walk with no aid. So regarding the factors that were analyzed in the first study, we had 3 main factors, which are, of course, the safety system. And as I said, it's a baseline study. So the safety systems that were evaluated were here the current system, which is, as Elise said, red flashing pictograms at the PTC, and this was compared in this study with no system at all at the crossing. We also, of course, because that's a really important element, we also had the train's movement factors. And so in the study, we had 4 conditions for this factor. We had stopping trains, so a train that is stopping at the station. Passing train, a condition, so when a train is just passing at the station without stopping. We had the second passing train condition, that's how we called it, because we were not sure about how to say that in English, but it's a situation which is really important in our safety context. It's when you've got one train which is stopped at the station, and in fact another train is passing at the station but without stopping, and that's really an important situation regarding safety of pedestrians. And we've got also the no train condition. So regarding the distracting element, we had 4 different conditions. We had a visual cognitive task, an auditivo cognitive task, a motor task, and also a no distraction condition. And I will give more details about this in the next slide. And we had also an additional factor, which is PTC location, so whether it is located at the middle of the platform or at the end of the platform. So the distracting elements. So we had the aim to recreate the effect on behavior of wearing headphones with music, of using a smartphone, or carrying a luggage. And so we designed different tasks for the participant. So to simulate the use of the smartphone, we designed a visual cognitive task where participants had to they have to count target words that they see. They see a list of words in their virtual reality headset, and they have to count the target ones. The auditivo cognitive task is very similar. It's the same task as the visual cognitive one, but this time the words are said in the virtual reality headset, in the headphones, and so participants hear them, and they have to count here as well the target words defined. To simulate luggage carrying, we just made them carry a piece of luggage. Well, and we also have a no distraction condition. So there were several questionnaires throughout the study that were given to participants. We had a questionnaire to collect socio-demographic data as well as the traveling habits of the participants. We also had the pedestrian behavior scale questionnaire where participants can self-evaluate their behavior relative to violations, errors, and lapses. And so the French version of this questionnaire was used. We also had a questionnaire to subjectively and qualitatively evaluate the safety systems, so systems that they encounter. And we had also a questionnaire to collect the participant feelings about the virtual reality environment. So the feeling of immersion they had, the difficulties they faced, and the potential strategies they developed. So here you get a video showing an example of an experimental session. So you can see a participant moving around the physical platform. So you can see that they wear the virtual reality headset. And here we have a luggage carrying, a piece of luggage carrying condition. And so you can see what they see through their virtual reality glasses. So here you can see that it's a night condition. You can see that it's a train passing and stopping at the station. And you can see the participant crossing the PTC, both in the virtual environment and in the physical environment. So I will now, so I have finished with the behavioral studies, and I will let Elise conclude on this presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
I think you have been too good, so they want to upload before conclusion. Okay, just a few words about the cognitive approach and what it helps us to do with our problem. So, the idea is that it helps us to really develop a model of human behavior at PTC, which has not been done yet. So it will be really a good route on the basis of our data. Then it will help us to understand and characterize the impact of risk factor on behavior. So distraction, weather condition, train movement, and really characterize it in terms of data numbers. And with that, we'll be able to develop new behavioral indicators. So what we want to look to evaluate really the improvement we can make. Based on risky crossing, but also gaze behavior, pattern, body movement, etc. And finally, one of the bigger improvements, I believe, is that we will be able to integrate behavior just like other technical aspects when we want to make decision for a future decision, and we will develop a decision matrix integrated behavior, technical aspect, legal aspect, cost aspect, and this is will be really the big end of the project to be able to decide, including behavior information. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. We have time for questions. Please, one here, another one here, a third, fourth. Ooh, big success. So first one was here, Fabrizio. Fabrizio, we had one here first. Thanks.
Thank you very much for an interesting presentation.
Close.
Can you elaborate a little bit on your thoughts on the 3 different solutions you are about to go into testing now?
Do you want to elaborate on this?
Do you want to? Yes, I can elaborate a bit. The idea is what we have found in the literature review and the first experiment is that for now we might inform really too late people about the danger. So this is the first issue that we wanted to make really sure that all information can be perceived before the PTC, because as you might have seen on the screen, for now the spectrogram are at the middle and at the other platform. So this was first things. The other thing we want to build on is the feeling of a barrier, something that stopping people. Not physical one, because there is a lot of technical constraint, but we can do things to give the feeling of something with sound, but also more visual or tactile things. We can create this feeling. And why we want to do that is because we want to force, in some term, or just help people to stop or slow down before arriving in the PTC, because we found out in the first studies that there might be at least 2 kinds of people that are generally safe, so they are safe at PTC, and people that are generally not safe, and they are not safe at PTC because they don't imagine there are risks. They are in train station, there is someone that is carrying everything that is here for their safety, or maybe they are just, okay, train will stop, I don't know. So we want to create a time for the decision they don't make for them. So we are working on how to place elements and the notion of barrier.
Thank you. We had a second question somewhere here, so we had one here. Yep. Thank you very much.
Hi, thanks for the presentation, but a question, you mentioned the analyze of the behavior, but how are you going to implement the change of behavior? So someone is distracted, how you will implement that someone's behavior is changing to make another decision?
Okay. the idea on which we are is by developing our system. The system will have an impact on behavior. The idea is, for example, to give you something more grounded, we do observe a pattern of participants. So when they approach, they take information way early that we were thinking about train, about maybe system if there is something, but they are just having a pattern of looking. Not every people doing that. So what we will do is changing where we put information, changing the way it activates, and look if the pattern change and if people have a good pattern of looking where from the train arrives, the information, etc., to really see if information gather and then stop them. Hope it was okay.
Thank you. We have a third question.
Yes,
here.
My name is Beat Rapu. I'm a project manager since 20 years. I'm also an engine driver since 40 years. And it's a bad situation, it's an unsafe situation. And in future, you will have other accidents. It's not good, and you have to build something, a subway, but you don't have the money for that, yes. Okay. We have the same situation in Switzerland. We don't have enough money to build these subways. But we have, in this situation, we have a speed from 20 kilometers per hour, 12 miles per hour, and the drivers, they have marche à vue on-site, they drive on-site, yes. Even we have accident with that, yes. And how much speed does have the trains, they pass. Sometimes they pass, sometimes they stop. You have just the light now. What's the speed of these trains?
The speed of trains going through this kind of train station, is that?
They pass through, yes?
Yes.
While the red light is
yes,
on.
it depends on situation, because it can be 140 kilometers, for example, okay. Or 160.
No other questions.
But yeah, I just want to give you a little bit overview on the situation of PTC. We have in the company some program to suppress them when some criteria are reached about the safety. So we want to suppress them, but for the other one, other aspects of developing with different safety improvement in the management, in people, in train driver, etc. And then there is this research program, but there are a lot of different actions, and we try to see what fits better for some cases depending on scenarios such as speed, number of train, number of passenger, etc. Yeah.
Thank you. We have time for one last question here. So there is, yeah? Okay, 2 last questions. And then we keep the others for the panel. Thanks.
Okay, in your research, did you discover differences in behavior regarding women and men, or differences in the age from the behavior?
Okay. For now, we didn't see any, from the data we have analyzed yet, we didn't see any differences according to ages in risk or accident, etc. There might be some differences, but that are totally logical with speed, walking speed, or maybe the environment looking, but we didn't go in depth of this kind of data now. But didn't saw that. We didn't see very much Just verifying with my mind. No, we do not have anything on gender otherwise. The more predictable variable here is really the level of risk behavior in daily life, which is really linked to risk behavior there. And this that explains more than gender or ages in our studies.
Thank you. And one last question. Okay, we have an overbooking of questions. So please, up to you, and you will save yours for the panel. Thanks.
Hello, good morning. Something maybe you explained, but something that get my attention. The people you choose for the study is not under 18 years and no further than 60. What is the reason? And also why you didn't choose any people with impaired capabilities? Is two questions. You said with people carrying a suitcase, but why not pushing a stroller? Thank you.
Okay. Regarding ages, we are under this research project is done with a PhD student and with a university, and there is a lot of legal paper and stuff to be able to test people under 18. So it's really difficult, so we decide to focus, as we can't do everything, decide to focus on adults. And for another reason, we weren't able to test people under, in reality it was 68, the top in the first study, but we weren't able to take people that might have difficulty to walk or have movement, etc., because the test is really physical. They have to walk during 40 minutes with a headset, so it's really challenging, so we can't do that with elderly people. And for the second question, for the impaired people, I have to say that in the real life, this train station with this kind of installation are not accessible. So they have been defined as stations that haven't the infrastructure for people with some impaired disabilities. Yes. So we didn't study yet. The thing we do is that we are working with association more on other disability, cognitive, hearing, sight, for when there are a little disabilities, but not PMR, for example. Okay, and the
we need to conclude.
Yeah. So the idea is that we have really limited possible testing condition, because to have really good data and good statistic, we have to choose what we done. So we choose the luggage because it's more representative of what we observe in train station.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for our two speakers, please. Thank you. Merci. And we move on now to the final presentation of this conference. I now call to the stage Anthony Byrne. I hope I don't. Thank you. You are the Principal Inspector, Head of Approvals and Authorizations for the Irish Commission of Railway Regulation, CRR. Please, a round of applause for Anthony. The floor is yours.
Thank you. It's a really good link, I think, from the last presentation, which looked at pedestrian behaviour at pedestrian track crossings to driver behaviour at road level crossings, and in particular, user work level crossings. Level crossings are on many railways around the world, and they are one of the top risks operationally. My presentation will hopefully explain some practical applications of human and organizational factors principles with some good engineering to try to reduce the risk at user work level crossings, but also to improve user behavior at those. Just a little bit of context. The Irish railway network is relatively small. It's about 2,500 track kilometres, and on that network we have around about 900 level crossings. So one level crossing maybe every 2 kilometres or so. So it's reasonably dense in terms of level crossings. We have a number of different types of level crossings. The one in the middle top, we would call an active level crossing. It's a full barrier CCTV level crossing with audio and visual cues for our train's approach, and they are remotely monitored from a control centre, whereby the controller will prove that the crossing is clear before clearing the line side signals for the approach of a train. They don't cause too many accidents. Occasionally we would get some barrier strikes with impatient road drivers. The image on the left-hand side, for which we have around about 50 or so, are what we call an attended level crossing. So a member of staff from the infrastructure manager will open the gates to the railway, closing them across the road when there is the passage of a train. Again, not too many accidents at these type of crossings, notwithstanding the occupational health and safety risks to the operator who's opening and closing gates across public roads. The vast majority of our level crossings would be what we call a passive level crossing or user worked, and the image on the top right would show an example of those. We have about 700 of these. There, for the main part, probably 650 would be what we call an accommodation crossing, linking one piece of land to another. So more for farmers and agricultural use. Sometimes they'll be for single dwellings or a small number of houses or dwellings or agricultural buildings. And it's a subset of that that I will be talking further about in the rest of the presentation. So this is the user work level crossing on a public road. Don't be deceptive. They always are on, or more often not, they're on rural roads that can be quite small, quite narrow, but they can be very busy. They can range from 20, 30, 40 car movements a day to 500, 600, 700 movements a day. So they do vary. And this one poses the greatest risk to our railways. Why is that the case? Well, there are 3 reasons for these being the highest risk. They are misused. So behaviour would say to us that the gates are habitually left open. So it's a simple iron gate operated by the level crossing attendant, and they just leave them open. People are lazy, so they choose not to close them afterwards. As I said, they're a passive level crossing, so there's no monitoring or supervision. There's nobody proving that the crossing is free of any obstructions. And in terms of it being passive, it's really only signage that warns that it is a level crossing. There's another project separately looking to improve these type of level crossings, but come and speak to me if you'd like to know more about that. And lastly, it's reliant on a competent user. And oftentimes in accidents we find out, or at least we're led to believe, that they're inexperienced users who hadn't come across these types of level crossings before. But it's reliant on those users to know to shut and fasten gates after use. So those passive level crossings, of which we have on public roads around about 50, are a high proportion of our railway accidents. So they are inherently risky. And as can be seen in those 4 pictures that are all relatively recent, thankfully there were no fatal injuries as a result of these. In fact, the last fatal injury at one of these level crossings was in 2010. But since then we've had 11 serious accidents, some of which have resulted in life-changing injuries. So on average, we're having 1 serious accident every other year. So a quick quiz and a little bit of interaction now, please. So you're driving across, when driving a car across a user work level crossing, so imagine that previous slide, you come to the gates. How many times do you think you might cross the tracks? 3? Anything higher, lower? Well, the answer is actually 5. How is it 5, you might say? If you think about it, you've driven up to the gates, you have to get out of your car, handbrake on, close the door, you go up to the gates, you open the gate, you walk across, that's the first time, to open the gate on the far side. You now open that gate, you need to walk back across the tracks to get into your car, that's twice. We now get into our car, we drive across the tracks, that's 3 times. We park our car on the far side, and we're supposed to walk back across the tracks to close the opposite gate. That's 4 times. And then we walk back to our car, closing the gate for the 5th time. So we're exposed to risk 5 times. I touched on it, but if we say the principal task is crossing a user work level crossing, so that's the primary task, but there are a number of subtasks. And if I kind of give an example how many discrete actions would be involved, an action might be we stop the car, we apply a handbrake, we open the door, we close the door, we open the gate. How many discrete actions would we think is involved in a user work level crossing? B? C. It's in fact C, and actually it's, from my simple calculations of it, it's in excess of 60 discrete actions required to cross that level crossing. And I'm not going to go into it in detail, but from a human factors approach and you undertaking a hierarchical task analysis of it, the top task being crossing a level crossing, there are 9 subtasks, and each of those has a myriad of actions. So when we look at all that, and now let's imagine it's a winter's evening, it's raining, or it's snowing outside, bitterly cold. You might have children in the back that you're bringing back from soccer practice. All you want to do is get home. It probably makes it reasonable to understand why people behave the way they do and not shutting fast gates. And when people don't shut and fasten gates, that's what leads to the accident, because it's the user that's coming along afterwards who either doesn't realise they're at a level crossing or chooses to take a risk and cross, drives through the level crossing and is struck by a train. Our national investigation body will routinely and will always undertake a safety investigation of serious accidents at level crossings. They will determine lots of findings and make safety recommendations that are then addressed to us as the safety authority to oversee the implementation. And following one such investigation at a user work level crossing, whereby a road vehicle was struck, again, thankfully nobody was injured, the NIB came with this safety recommendation. They asked for our DOT, that's just short for Department of Transport, so our ministry, to review, in consultation with a number of stakeholders, the warning signage that is in place on the approaches to these level crossings, but also then to look at other traffic calming measures that might help or reduce the risk at these crossings. And the remainder of my presentation will explain now what we did. So our ministry established a working group. They got some specialists from their rail division, from their roads divisions. They asked for us as the NSA to participate in the working group, given we had some safety knowledge and some human factors experience. And clearly then we needed the infrastructure manager from Irish Rail. A number of meetings were held where we gathered data, looked at near-miss information, tried to identify where the bad level crossings are. And then we undertook, when we narrowed it down, we undertook some site visits to visit some of these level crossings, because again, some of the personnel from the Department of Transport would have been less familiar with these type of crossings, so we wanted to show them what it's about. We narrowed it down to a smaller number, 4 locations, representative of traffic volume, road geometry, etc., and where the risks were, and we undertook some site surveys. We liaised with our road safety authority to gather some further safety information, and then we started to look at optioneering, looking at different signage types or other measures that we could be doing, using the PDCA type of cycle. In terms of the level crossing signage review, so this is the current sign that's in place at or on the approaches to our level crossings. All warning signage in Ireland is a yellow diamond with a black perimeter with black pictograms. And in this one, it's a picket fence with a countdown marker showing that the level crossing is 100 metres in advance. We undertook a number of signage options. We did some literature reviews. We've seen what else was out there, and we tried to look at what are our current signs and how we could modify those to try and convey the information more appropriately as that you're coming to a level crossing. And so we used puffing billies with gates, puffing billy with the stop sign, signage, or with the sign and the gate. Then we tried, potentially looked at a more modern train with a gate, and then another variation of that. We looked at all of those, but After our review, we decided to stick with the sign that was there. You're going to say to me, so you did all this work and you chose the same sign. Why did we do that? Well, there was two reasons. The first reason is that the sign is internationally recognized through the Geneva Convention of Road Signage. And from our literature review, we understood that this sign is in place in around about 15 or more countries around the world, albeit not necessarily at the same type of level crossing. The second reason was information from the Road Safety Authority led us to believe that 7 out of 10 people correctly identified the sign as part of the driving theory test. So we can say, okay, so 7 out of 10 are getting it right. It's internationally recognized. Do we want to go playing with this sign? So we said, maybe not. But what we chose to do was to supplement it with just an additional plate to try and make it clear that, look, this is a train level crossing. See tracks, think train, that type of mentality. Using the same fonts, styles of signage that are recognized. But what we did do is we wanted to increase the prevalence of signage, so where possible we would now introduce countdown markers at 300 meters, at 200 meters and at 100 meters. So a driver on approach would see that yellow sign 3 times and train level crossing. So we're hoping to get that message across. In terms of traffic calming measures, we considered a number of options. We looked at possibly installing speed ramps, trying to make the road narrower in some cases to try and force road vehicles to slow down. We looked at road geometry in terms of could we create a chicane again to slow vehicles down, or try and introduce kind of rumble strips or speed ramp or paint markings on the road. And we opted for the paint markings on the road, having consulted with local authorities and the infrastructure manager in terms of ease of access to install them, ease of maintenance, and their use and prevalence around on the approach from high-speed roads to roundabouts and things. So they were quite conspicuous and well understood, which is why we chose that. In terms of surface treatments, lots of different types of surface. We wanted to make it more conspicuous. So in our part of our researching, we've seen, well, blue surfaces tend to be associated with car parking or spaces reserved for persons of reduced mobility. The brown surface treatment on the top is usually an anti-skid type of surface used on the approaches from faster speed sections to junctions. Yellow boxes, yellow is used, and we weren't too keen on that one because we were going to be using it elsewhere. But we did like the kind of red on white. And that's just an example of a cycleway that we use. Now again, cycleways we have seen green on white also, but we did like the red on white, which is what we opted to trial at our level crossings. So what has been trialled? Well, again, back to the level crossing that we showed earlier on. But if we look at the bottom image, you can see starting from the right-hand side, we decided to trial 2 types of the yellow markings. So again, it's a form of a rumble strip, so they're slightly raised. And then we wanted to create a tapering effect on a couple of level crossings to kind of create a kind of a tunneling effect that you're entering into something. We were going to paint right the way through from inside the gates, the surface completely red with the white stop markings, and then supplemented by the signage that I mentioned earlier. What did it look like in practice? I know it kind of looks fake, but it actually is real. The one on the far right, it looks like we just painted it on, but we did paint it on, and it did look like that. Now, clearly, that was immediately after installation, but it was quite highly visible, highly reflective. And as I said, we trialed 2 whereby we painted the red right the way through the tracks, and then on 2 of the trials, we decided, well, we won't put it through. And that was based on feedback when we consulted with the drivers before we went to trial. The image in the middle kind of shows after a number of months of installation where that particular level crossing, there's a lot of agricultural vehicles, but thankfully it still holds up quite well. Picture was taken after approximately 4 months. And once there's a little bit of rainfall, they do clean up quite well. And we would hope that the surfacing would last for between 3 and 5 years. And then the signage in the top right. So then in terms of trial feedback and our next steps, well, sorry, it's possibly a little small, so apologies for that. But as I said, we had 4 trial sites, and we as the safety authority visited all those after the installation, and we spoke to in excess of 400 drivers across the 4 to speak to them about what they thought about the enhancements. It was a very quick survey because when you're wearing an orange vest at a level crossing, they usually don't really want to talk to you. So we had developed very quick questions just to simply say, are you a regular user? How many times would you use this a day? What do you think of the enhancements? And 4 out of 5 were very complimentary. They said, yeah, it makes it really conspicuous, really obvious. The red kind of hits you. You can't possibly miss it. And also, a number of them said that it made them slow down on the approaches, which is the exact effect of what we wanted to achieve. Some users did feel that illumination, because a lot of these crosses are in rural areas and they are dark, and they did want some lighting. But again, that would be at a significant cost and maintenance to the infrastructure manager, so we're trying to manage aspirations. In terms of driver feedback, as I said, we spoke to the drivers beforehand to solicit their comments and feedback before we trialled it. And then afterwards, the Irish Rail Human Factors team would have rode in the cab with the train drivers to solicit some feedback from them. And again, it was broadly positive. In particular, they liked the painted gates, which are red and white. They felt that those were really conspicuous, and particularly when they were left open, they could be seen as the train driver approached, and they could react accordingly by sounding train horns and or reducing some speed. But they did also give some feedback that they preferred the red surface to be outside of the tracks. So taking the trial forward, that's what we will be doing. So in terms of next steps, well, the infrastructure manager so far has been really pleased, well, we all have been really pleased with the performance of it. We looked at the number of near misses beforehand and number of near misses and collisions afterwards, and it's significantly reduced. So that would bode well for the future. However, since this last safety recommendation, our NLB, we investigated a further level crossing accident. So they've reiterated the safety recommendation to look at the warning sign 121 and asked us again to look at it and say, really, is that the best sign for it? So we've done some further review and literature researching, and I think it was the Transport Laboratory and the RSSB in the UK developed the sign that's in the bottom left corner there, which kind of illustrates the collision aspect. So trying to get across, whoa, you're going to potentially hit a train here, there's a big risk. In comprehension tests that the RSSB conducted, it was really well understood. However, they didn't take it forward themselves because they felt the clutter effect, because their warning sign is a red triangle and has less space, whereas our yellow diamond is a slightly bigger sign, so we felt it was quite conspicuous. So going forward on the next 3 trial sites, that's the sign that we're going to be doing. Thereafter, pending further review in maybe another 6 months' time, we may try to roll it out completely and update our traffic signs manual. So simply in conclusion then, it's really just to say that the collaboration between our ministry, specialists from Roads and Rail Department, our infrastructure manager, has brought about what we hope will be a positive change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will immediately move on to the panel discussion, so please stay on stage. You can have a seat. And I would like to invite all of the speakers that took the floor this morning, as we did yesterday. If you were 2 from the same organization, 2 or 3, please only one of you come into the stage. Thank you. And to moderate this panel, I hand over to the amazing, the one, the only, Clarisse.
Thank you, Cyril. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for your great presentations again and for being there. Are there questions from the room? Sorry, by the time, welcome Marcus. Thank you very much for joining us today. I think we can hear you and you can hear us.
I can hear you, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly,
Hopefully not
thank
too
you.
Loud.
So this is Marcus Arrhenius, who developed the DB InfraGO model that was presented by Dennis, and he will interact for the questions and answers. Sorry, Yana, you can.
Thank you. I have a question for Anthony. Have you thought about changing the barrier system in place?
You can.
It's not something we really have considered at this moment in time. It would be a significant cost if we were to install barriers. Typically, prior to the study, we certainly looked at kind of how can we, elimination of crossings. Well, that can cost, if we were to bridge it, things that are by land. But even to automate it or put barriers in would cost in around about €1 million per crossing. And we simply don't have the budget for that at this moment in time. So we're trying to look at more practical arrangements to change the user-driver behavior.
Thank you. Any other question?
Hello. Luca Save, di Blue. It's a question for SNCF, the Prisma program, so I guess for Pippa or Florence. I was impressed by the program you put in place, and there was one slide presented by Jan, but I'm sure you can also answer, that was referring to these field tours and to the fact that sometimes you come out with implementing new organizations. So I was, in a way, thinking about it in my experience, how happy are managers when you say, okay, we are going to implement new organizations. So there are many stakeholders impacted by these internal stakeholders, like people taking care of procedures, people taking care of maintenance of rolling stocks, and people managing training. So there are many people within the organization that are impacted when you say, I'm going to build a new organization. So how did you manage the natural resistance to it, if any? Maybe you were very, very lucky, but I'm very curious to know.
That's obviously the most difficult part of it. But by going down to the users and working out what their problems are, it's not just the organization, it's multifactorial. So by participating in the analysis with the users, then the whole sort of line can see that it's not just the organization that is. It's never one thing that comes out that needs to be changed. And by seeing the impact that the organization, if people can speak freely, which is obviously part of the problem, if they can see the impact that the organization has on the people, and the people can make suggestions on how to make it better, it's much more powerful, and they don't feel so responsible individually. But that is very difficult because a lot of managers feel responsible for the organization that is there. So that is, I don't know if Florence or Bertrand would like to complete, but it is a challenge. But that's why we're trying to work on the freeing of the speech and training our managers to accept the freeing of speech.
Yes, maybe in addition, when we speak about reorganization, it can be very, very large one with many people involved in that, but it can also be a very local reorganization involving just 10% of a team. The main goal for us is for this kind of organization to set up the mindset of the managers to take into account the point of view of the workers of the team. And in addition, we can use the tools such as CSM, risk assessment, and so on. But the key element is to help managers to understand and to use really the point of view of the users of the organizations that are often the workers of the team.
Thank you.
Shall I continue? I have 3 questions, and then also of the change at the SNCF. Was there a specific reason to start this change? For example, an accident or something else? Because you are talking about the change, but I would like to know if there was a reason to start the change.
As Florence presented, the PRISM program, which is the group program, was instigated after the Bretigny accidents and we had several major rail accidents. And it was one of the issues that came out was that it was the human factors and the organizational factors which were needed to be changed. And that's what provoked us to do the PRISM program. And that was a more group. And then in 2022, we built on that at TER because we had problems. We do measure our accident frequency, and we have real difficulties getting it to decrease. So we thought we have to make a change, we have to do something different, and that was when Bertrand and the managing committee decided to implement and to really train people to make a difference. But it's a long process.
Yeah, thank you, very clear. Also a question for Anthony. You were talking about drivers on the road and the red part, which is continuing on the rail part. Did you also ask the train drivers what they think about the red part when they are approaching with the train red part?
Absolutely, yes. So before we even went to install the installations, we spoke to a number of drivers and driver managers, and we presented to them the CAD drawing to say, look, this is what we're proposing to do at these 4 locations. Do you have any risks or concerns? A number of drivers were concerned about the red surfacing because that might be a distraction, which is why at the 2 locations where drivers did express that, we chose to put in the no red in between the rails. At the other 2 locations, the drivers didn't really comment on it. There were drivers were given some briefings beforehand and said, look, the installation's going in at the weekend. And then the first drivers who went across it would have been accompanied by a driver trainer. Thereafter, the drivers did respond. We spoke to them, and as I mentioned, the Irish Rail Human Factors team would have driven in the cab with them to solicit their feedback. And it was broadly positive. There was pretty much none said they didn't like it. They all felt it improved their situational awareness when for long periods of time there can be no features to see whatsoever, and then you can come around a corner and level crossing. So it's made it, brought back where they were. And as I said, going forward with the trial, the red surfacing won't be in between the rails. It would only be just up to the edges.
Very clear, thank you. And I think it is for Jana about virtual reality.
Thank you.
Or one of the 2 of you. I really liked the way you used the virtual reality, but did you check if this way of working is also representative for the real situation? Did you do a check on that?
I think so. Maybe Elise will give some more detail, but I think that, yes, we made sure that they would have the behavior, that the behavior would be quite close to the one in the real reality. And in any case, it was not possible to conduct such a study on the field, like for security reasons, safety reasons for pedestrians and participants, it was not possible. So we had to find a solution to do the study in one way. So of course there would be some difference, and of course their behavior won't be exactly the one they would have at pedestrian level crossing, but that's still the best we can do, I think, in terms of analyzing their behavior at PTC. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Okay, thank you.
Just to complete what we are doing to ensure a good reliability of what we are doing, we have done some immersion checking, and according to what is done in literature on safety literature and human behavior, we are way above the standards with the platform. And the other thing we looked is if we replicate the pattern of accident we have found in reality. So we know that there are some situations that are giving more accident. And we have found exactly the same pattern that in reality in the similar condition with the safety system, etc., etc. So with that, we are pretty confident. There is still some we are not doing it in a real life. But as we recreate some pattern and have a really good immersion, we are really confident that what we found will be, in most of cases, good for reality too.
Thank you, Jana and Elise. Any other question from the room? Yes, please, Ludwig.
Yeah, I have some questions. The first one, Florence and Pippa, you told about organizational learning. How do you manage the loops in the improvement process coming from individual learning, team learning, really to the organizational learning? How do you manage this?
That's a difficult one. We've only been doing it for 2 years.
Sorry.
That's okay. But because of the network, so we have the individual work studies, which then are shared with people from over the country in the same team, in the same jobs. And so they can then reproduce that in their job environment with similar problems. And also we have sort of conferences, in internal conferences for managers, and our objective is also to share. We want to make a video with the people who are on our test line so that they can be witnesses to what they've done, the impact that it's had on their production, to inspire other people to do it. So that's one of our questions for the next step, is how do we diffuse this information, and especially in less mature environments, because some people have it in their bones that they want to do this, but some people are less receptive. And that's the challenge, is to get this mindset to less receptive people. So if you have any ideas, we're open to suggestions, but that's the way we're heading.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm grabbing to your ideas, so I don't have one. The next is for Luca, please. Did you discover a link from the socialization to violation and detention? Is there a link or not?
Yes, there is a link. As I told before, there is more probability for these groups of workers that are less socialized to perform violations, also systematic violations, because they tend to the possibility to develop some, let's say, parallel procedures from the written ones. So this is risky, of course. It's not for every organization, not in every situation, but it's a risky situation, in our opinion.
Okay, thank you. The next one is for Dennis and Markus. How do you analyze the outcomes from your checks? Which method do you use to come to a result?
Okay, so I can take the question. The results are aggregated in a software that we use for collecting our results from the checks, an existing software that has been added with the HOF module. And this HOF module collects all the data, all the errors errors that were committed in combination with the error classification schemes and the human and organizational factors that contributed to the violation. And this is aggregated in a centralized database, and then it's ready for analysis in all the different levels of the organization. So from all of Germany down to a small part of our company, so a region, for example, or an on-site evaluation.
Okay, thank you very much. And the last one for Anthony. These, let's say, self-service level crossings with the barriers seems to be a little bit tricky to come through. So did you ever plan or think about to eliminate them or replace them by normal passive level crossings? I think it's the same goal reached, but not so tricky.
There has been some early discussions about potential removal of these type of barriers in the future. Another project has been ongoing for the last 2 or 3 years where there's, you may have noticed in one of the pictures, you'll see these kind of orange bags. They're actually covering a red and amber light, which is what's referred to as the decision support system. And when a train is nowhere near, the light is yellow. And when there's a train approaching, when it strikes in, it will go to red. So that's possibly a precondition for perhaps sometime in the future, removing these gates, because experience would tell us that more often than not, if you come to one of these level crossings, the gates would be open. So it is something we're looking at, but it would require legislative change because it's in our national legislation to have shut and fasten gates since Victorian times. So it's not a straightforward thing, and it would be a big change for us to consider. But it is something we're doing. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you to all. Are there any questions from the room? I don't see any. Yes, please. Two.
Hello. Question for Luca, please. So, Luca, the group that you described, composed of psychologists and engineers, it seems very well formed to take a systems perspective on error and violations. And I was wondering how you do that using the GEMS model. So how do you move on from identifying the errors and the violations to the systems changes that might be needed to influence those?
Okay. No, at the moment we use the GEMS model for identifying the possible root causes for hazards and incidents and accidents and so on. But also the control measures, the related control measures are identified using this model. So it is both for identifying root causes, both for identifying control measures. So.
Okay, thank you.
We had one question here. In the meantime, I may ask a question to Marcus and Dennis, because we spoke a lot about off mindset and the change. So how was it perceived by operational staff, and how did you train the people who have to monitor to this new approach?
That was actually a big part of the change. All the checkers and the supervisors that are involved in this are trained regarding the classification scheme. So it's part of the training courses and also of the professional development. So if someone moves from a function to this function, then they are also specifically trained on these HOF concepts and how to do these analysis. Furthermore, we have developed several supporting material that we share internally via SharePoint, and we are conducting regular meetings on HOF for all the involved personnel, which they can use at leisure in regular intervals in order to disseminate the knowledge. Another thing that we are currently doing, and which is colloquially termed the HOF Roadshow, is that we are moving from site to site in Germany and are doing role plays where we actually test, or not test, but actually apply this analysis and for us gather feedback for the improvement of the analysis, and also in order to foster the mindset that is required in order to conduct a good analysis.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. Please, your question.
Yes, to the virtual reality study. Early in your studies, you found some factors affecting the real life accidents, distractions, and maybe also time pressure. Did I understand, did you implement them in your baseline study as well? And now the real question, did you do that to an extent where you were able to have a virtual accident?
Just not sure to have understood it, so let me rephrase. You were asking about distractor and how we implement them and if it led to accident and how accidents are managed in the virtual environment?
My question is, if you would set up the factors for the experiment for a 40-minute experience, you could introduce distractions, you did so, and you could also introduce time pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And did you maybe do this to an extent where somebody was actually hit by a passing train in your experiment?
Okay, so okay, not sure to see. Okay, yeah. So what we have is we can't risk behavior on accident, and there was distraction, but they didn't lead directly to accident. This is something that we consider pretty normal because we found out that, for example, in the first study, the safety system really have more impact than distraction factor, that individual itself, themselves have more impact than distraction and accident. But what we have observed is more on the pattern of observation of the environment. That, for example, that when people have a distraction, either visual or auditive one, they won't take attention to the environment in the same way. For example, they're really more focused on their feet, on where they want to go, and they won't explore all the environment. So in the real life, this is really an indicator that might lead to an accident, but in our study, it's just an indicator that they don't take information and we do not observe the link to accident, but mostly due to the other factors that have more impact, finally.
I can maybe complete a bit what you said, but tell me if I'm wrong, Elise, but we didn't put a time pressure condition, I think, in the studies, and it was not the aim to see to go to the extent of where we would have an accident happening. Collision happened, but it was not made on purpose. It happened because of just the natural behavior of the pedestrian, the natural behavior, their behavior during the virtual experiment. But I don't think it was an objective of the study to put time pressure on the participant and see until when it would make an accident happen.
Thank you, Jana and Elise. Any question from the room? Yeah. You have two microphones, and
Sorry, Bart. I have a question for Elaine about, you talked about you're in the process of merging cultures, and really about the bow tie and the HOF work. Has that really helped in bringing cultures together? Has that been an integral part? Was that the intention? Because I can see how it could be really helpful.
Yeah, I think, good question, and part of the challenge. And I think underlying bringing to that bow tie analysis is trying to capture the good practice from both organisations, recognise that, you know, one is not better than another, they're just different. And in the new context, identifying where we can take from both. Because it's not, you know, it's a partnership that we've come together. It's not trying to say that you shall follow, because then that's, you know, getting into this poor culture and so on. But as Bjorn said, it's a work in progress, and there is a journey, and part of this is about training people in human and organizational factors where there is different levels of understanding in the company, and it is a long-term view. So we are at the start, but we have made a good start, I hope. And we are trying our best to take people with us. And I think, you know, through all of this, and certainly from SNCF experience as well, it's about identifying who are your champions, who you can take along the road, who will be your first followers, and then you can get some movement, you know, to really change the culture. And it's great to hear the examples from yourselves about where you've been able to achieve that.
Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you. Any other question? Yes, Vincent?
Yeah, hello everyone. Actually, I take the occasion to have such a nice panel to ask a general question on HOF for the point of view of the railway undertakings or the safety authority or the professionals like most of you in safety management systems. Just because, technically speaking, there has been historically demands on quantifying the risk of human error to provide safety demonstrations in terms of, acceptable level of failure by integrating human factors analysis into human reliability, analysis or safety demonstrations. So I know, for instance, in the nuclear industry, it's the case here for some safety authorities are actually asking for quantified analysis. And here, for the beginning of the conference, we are more talking about safety culture and how, with a given situation, we are dealing and improving all the time. So my question is it really important for you as safety manager or as railway undertakings to have a quantified picture of the things, or it's more important to be able to manage with the situation as it is? You know, I hope I'm clear.
Who wants to start? Yes, please.
Is it on? Yes. Maybe I can elaborate a little bit on your question, because the problem on human and organizational factors in general is that most of them are qualitative. So you can't really measure anything. For example, how do you measure mistrust? You can't. All you can do is measure the errors. And therefore, you need a good approach for your assessment to deal with those factors in general. Yeah, it should be based on your approach, I mean.
I think Marcus wants to complement what you said.
That quantification is, if done properly, very, very difficult because it entails a number of issues. So one of the issues, as Dennis pointed out, is the performance shaping factors or human and organizational factors and how they can be quantified. And you have to have very explicit definitions and clear frameworks in order to do a very good quantification. There are some methods that are, I guess, recommended if you should do it, but I would caution to use it too soon, because it's a very difficult process entailing a lot of difficult issues on the data that you use for quantification, the task models that you applied, how probabilities propagate between tasks, for instance, and how you model that. So it's a very difficult process, and it should be treated with a high degree of expertise, of course, but also with caution in order to avoid to generate numbers that on paper seem very good, but perhaps don't really match the reality. And to further stress the point, I think it's at the moment more important to build a good model, a good view on what our HOF are, and to gather data before we go too heavily into modeling error probabilities. However, if it's done, then there are some methods that are recommended and can be used. I guess I saw in one of the papers, RARA, for instance, was recommended. I haven't used it personally, but that is one of the models that could be used, for instance. But there are a lot of other models.
So to complete, we agree that certain indicators are not very representative. We use the taux de fréquence, which is the number of accidents per 100,000 people, and it's not a real representation of the accidents. So we're pushing for a different indicator, which is a ratio of the quasi-accident de travail to accident de travail, which is the number of in dangerous situations which we analyze. So we're now objectivizing our teams on the ratio. We want 3 times more quasi-accident than actual accidents with sick leave. So that's one of the things we're pushing for, to encourage people to discuss the dangerous situations so that before they reach accident level.
And to complete also, I can say, to answer your question, yes, it is important for our directors to know, as it was say, we don't have money as as we want to have, so we must choose where we put our money, and to know where we put our investment. So to do that, we have to measure, but with good measure. So it's not really important for us as of specialists, but it is important for our companies to know how to progress.
Just to complete, this is also a way of measuring our improvement. If you don't benchmark and see where you're going from, you can't see if you've improved.
Thank you. And just, sorry if I may, just to follow on that point, I think where there is a place for human reliability assessment is perhaps where you're making a change and you want some data or some quantification that will help you compare 2 options or the impact of the change, where you're looking for the vulnerabilities in the existing task and you're looking at, does it really help with those vulnerabilities and to improve the situation. I think it has a place when it's used correctly by the right people in the right sort of circumstances. And I think quite fortunately, there is less fixation on numbers in the rail industry than perhaps there are in others. And I find that reassuring and, you know, and a good thing, particularly when we're tracking this sort of higher level data, which to me is much more realistic. And I think in the nuclear context, they just don't, I mean, it's a different level and a different regulatory context.
Thank you very much. I think there is some...
Two questions. No, just a compliment for a SNCF point of view. I think it's very difficult to have some KPIs concerning the HOF, but the goal is to improve the global efficiency, and what we observed in the presentation this morning is that performance is not only a performance on safety and security, but it's a global performance on the best way to promote the HOF in our companies is to show that when we set up that, when we develop this culture, it's a global performance that will be improved.
Exactly. We heard a lot about issues, but I think hearing about human and organizational factors performance is a good starting point too. I think there is a very last question.
It's a remark about the quantification of risks. I completely agree with you all and Marcus. However, it may be interesting to know that the Dutch infrastructure manager, on request of the NSA, has developed a scientifically based module that calculates the level crossing safety based on outcome, based on incidents and accidents.
Okay, thank you for this information.
Very good. Thank you very much, Clarisse. Thank you very much to all the speakers. Please, a round of applause for them.
And thank you also to Marcus, who joined us during his holidays. Thank you very much, Marcus.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you. And greetings to Norwegian colleagues and for your wonderful Nordlandbanan that I could visit during my holidays.
Thank you.
Tromsø to Bodø.
So thank you very much to everyone. Thank you to all the speakers who have shared their insights yesterday and today. And thank you to everyone in the room for your presence first, for your questions then. A big thank you as well to everyone following us via the web streaming. We hope you enjoyed the conference, all of you. Before I hand over with a QR code that you will see at some point. So please do it. It's very important for us. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank everyone who contributed to making this conference a success. Clarisse, of course, she deserves a huge round of applause. Kim, Bruce, who is in the backstage, Fabrizio, Bart, Anna for the microphones, for the help, Dorothea for the communication side. It's a teamwork more than ever, these conferences. So thank you, everyone. And a big thank you. Yes. Also, thank you to the technical teams here from this beautiful venue, the IMTD. Thank you a lot to everyone. And yeah, 3 more things, as would have said Steve Jobs. First, the wallet. Last call for the wallet. So, okay, so I can really go to the restaurant then. Okay, good, thanks. The lanyards, second thing, please just drop them when you leave the room. And the attendance list for those who haven't signed yet. When you exit the room, please sign the second day. That's it for me. Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to Pio Guido, the head of Railway Systems Department at ERA, for the conclusion. Pio, thanks.
Thank you. And I will be short. I mean, I was supposed to say thank you, sorry, and do a bit of marketing, but you did all the thank you already. I would like to say sorry, apologies for the attendees that were joining online this morning. I understand there was some technical glitch. They were not able to follow since the beginning, but I think we will have the availability of the full sessions on the YouTube channel of the agency. All the contributions that you have presented along the 2 days will also be available on the website some days in the future, I think. And well, I'm an outsider. I mean, my railway experience is mostly on the technical side. But for me, it was really an eye-opener because the type of conferences I usually go to, I mean, I have no EATMS tattoo, but I have some EATMS scarring, maybe, I don't know. But it's mostly about, you know, the celebration of how good we are and the good progress we make, apart from the money that we have to receive from Commission, the companies, etc., to the implementation. And I saw a lot of celebration of the success, the progress, the good initiative that you have presented, but there is also a candid, open discussion of what needs still to be done. the difficulties that you have encountered and the differences of the situations where we all come from. I think that for me this conference was the demonstration of having a safe space where you can really have this type of conversation. I think I understand that it's really important to try to look at the areas for which we have no clear measurement, no clear understanding, where we don't know exactly what we don't know, and this is where we should put our attention. I understood that the HOF in general is not a tool, it's a mindset, but it's also a tool. And maybe this is where I would like to do the little bit of the sales pitch and say that indeed, I mean, it's a tool because we need to have the same vocabulary, or at least to understand each other, to make reference to similar ways of addressing this science or the difficulties that we are trying to discuss, improve, and share with the others. So it's important that we have this type of common understanding, and we try to progress together, sharing what we have discovered, tested, and maybe develop with the help of universities, academia, with experts in other fields, lots of discussions about what other sectors can help railways do and progress in this area. And this is where I think I just wanted to say also the agency, Article 4 of the Safety Directive gives us the duty to combine with our means, but to support the improvement of safety, taking into account technical progress and the current development of the legislation. And we do that. Yes. With the support that we get from you, from all the people that decide to share with us the tools, the systems that we are developing. I heard mentioning the HOF 5x5 by DB, InfraGO, and I think I also saw it somewhere in one of the 20 slides that were quickly presented by DITS, but you also mentioned the 5x5 model that was developed by us, not as a competing model for others, but more to try to capture what is relevant for rail in the different dimensions of staff and situations, and of the, I can say, the pressure that we discussed on the situational awareness, the differences that we can have, and that can be used to assess and study the reality of the workplace. Similarly is what we do with the HOF in change management. It's a toolkit that allows to have questions that you can use when doing this assessment through the change, the design, the implementation of the change. I will not mention all the other tools that are there. They are in the dedicated page that we have on our website that we have recently restructured. Thank you, Cyrielle, and the team for that. Last but not least, Rail HOF, the digital platform that we jointly with the UIC, who is present in the room, managed to raise the awareness, share knowledge, and provide the sector with the tools that, as I mentioned, they are not. I mean, they are not the mindset of the HOF, but they are necessary. And clearly, I heard, I think, SNCF saying that is not something, the safety culture or this approach that you can impose. It's something that needs to grow organically, is co-created. So this is where I think it's important for us that we continue working together on that. Speaking of the tool offering, more in particular about the training offering that you can see on our web page. I will mention also the next edition of the HOF in SMS training that is planned for March 25, where the colleagues will be happy to receive applications for that. And well, yes, I think that you said something about feedback, and I heard a lot about tasks and activities as you imagine or as you define the task and as you realize it.
Feedback is the next step.
And this is exactly that. So we want also to understand what is the difference between this conference as imagined and this conference as realized. So please use the link, give us the feedback, and help us making sure that we can improve also for the future edition that will be in 2 years. But thanks, everybody. Thank you.
I only have 2 words. Bon appétit.